Welcome back to Shit Women Talk About. I'm Jennifer and I'm here with Chris.
Hello. Today we're going to talk about all kinds of stuff. We're going to talk about relationships, romantic relationships to be specific. And we're going to give you a little bit of an overview as to what's been going on in our lives and things that we've been talking about out in the wild. And then we're going to jump into the topic at hand. We're also going to take a few little questions, that we've been, kind of gathering from out there in the world. So I think it's going to be a really good topic of conversation today. I'm glad to see you, my friend.
Glad to see you. And I'm excited about this conversation, as we've alluded to. It's one of our special interests: romantic relationships, dating, intimacy. So, yeah, but what's been going on in your world?
Yeah, so there's been a lot of stuff going on with me. I've had lots of conversations with different people. There's things going on in my brain, like my dad died in late 2019, and that's like still continuing to be a learning lesson for me. And I have other friends who are those of us Gen Xers are a lot of us are it's hot season for parents to be dying, and so there's a lot of emotional stuff around that and what it means and lessons learning around it. There's a lot of conversations around loss and love, and the real frustration. I feel like that there's this energy that's coming around us that everybody is really struggling to find these deep love relationships. My male friends and my female friends are having these conversations with me, and kind of also unpacking, like what, like childhood trauma and like how to actually live with that. So it's been interesting. Still excited about Kamala.
Yeah, for sure. That's been,
What's going on?
yeah,
Yeah. How
that's
about
been,
you?
yeah, that's been my world, pretty much Kamala. So I do a lot of volunteering for democracy
Yes, you do.
and trying to get out the vote to Americans who live abroad. So most of my things have been centered around go to votefromabroad.org and ensure that you register and request your ballot. So we've been planning events, onboarding new volunteers. We've seen like a massive increase in interest since the announcement, which is fabulous. But as a leader in the org, I'm stretched thin. So I'm trying to figure out how to onboard people and get people involved and right people, right places. So that's, launching a podcast during general election season for someone that's deeply involved in politics. We'll never know if it was the right choice, but I'm just very happy that we are still pushing through. Like, it's like, we don't have to stick to
Me too.
any
Me
specific
too.
cadence. And so, maybe we'll be weekly later, but for now. So there's a lot of Kamala, a lot of politics, a lot of conversations about that. And then recently, with the DNC, Tim Walz's son, the discourse that's been happening around his neurodivergence has
Mm-hmm.
spurred some advocating for neuroinclusion and talking to people about, maybe the right language to use and actually what nonverbal learning disability is. It's not that he isn't verbal. So, and a lot of learning for myself. So that's been good. And then of course, like, I'm trying to figure out how to actually job search and plan to
Oh,
leave
struggle.
this country. But I spend like 40, 50 hours a week on politics, and so trying to figure out how to balance my life. And I think I'm going to try a dopamine menu, which we won't go into, but for those of you out there struggling to with momentum or whatever, figuring out what your
Yeah.
priorities are, what you can do based on energy, Google dopamine menu and check it
Mhm.
out. So we might have more on that in a future episode to see if it's a success for either me or Chris. But yeah,
Yeah, I love that. So you shared that with me as well, and it sort of put a structure to things that I've been doing organically, and I like the structure of it. So
she
which is a
likes
nice
the
thing. So
structure.
I think both of us find that our neurodivergence brain need a little structure, because if we don't have a little structure, then we're just all just dopamine seeking, and then we get caught in that executive dysfunction, like can't figure out how to
Yeah.
get dressed
Well,
and
I
stuff.
heard something really great yesterday. It was like, neurodivergent people have struggle with having empathy for their future self.
Mm.
So, like,
Good.
anyway, we haven't talked about that, but we'll talk about it another time. But it's like, yeah, having empathy for your future self, doing the thing right now that's going to make your future self happy, and struggling with the black and white thinking there. So, anyway, lots of stuff there. But yeah, I think both of us were really excited about Kamala and the big shifts that we're seeing just more like broadly in society, that people are leaning into choosing love and light and hope and joy and unity and inclusion, and not darkness and despair and fear and hate and division and exclusion.
Yeah.
That's old news. That's out. We're like not really here for that. So I'm very excited about that. And I
Yes.
know, you know, what Chris was saying, what's happening in her world, I think we're both really thankful for the very, the handful or couple of really deep and complex friendships that we have, that allow us to explore all of these big emotions and shifts in our life. Because Chris and I are both making pretty huge career and life transition, like changes in our life. So I think it requires a different level of support from our core and anchor friends.
Yeah.
And so we're very thankful for that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I haven't in the past, like really put myself in a place of, asking for help from my friends, which has been a learning curve for me. And
Yeah.
so and there are a few friends in my life that they have showed up, and I've been lucky that they've done that. But also like really having hard conversations and saying, not just saying things. This has been a real learning curve for me, of not just saying I'm struggling, not just saying I'm having a hard time, because what happens with that is people say, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Let me know what I can do to help."
Yeah. Which is not very helpful, really. So,
It's not helpful for you, and it's not helpful for them,
yeah.
and leaves everybody in a place where nobody knows what to do, and everybody feeling like, you know, nobody's
Not
getting paid.
seen, not heard, not supported, which actually kind of works well to pivot us into actually what we want to talk about today, which is
Yeah.
romantic relationships. So I think like we struggle with like, okay, we have so many things to say all the time. So
Let's do
like
history, though. Let's do history.
we'll do history. We'll do history because just to give a baseline, because this is a conversation that we're going to continue to have. It's embedded in kind of who we are and how we connect and what we talk about. So we're going to start with like our history of kind of our dating life, our romantic relationship life, and then kind of go through a current state of affairs where we're at right now, and then talk about some general stuff. But Chris, you want to start us off with your history as the elder?
The elder. I don't know if I like that term, Jennifer.
The
The elder.
elder.
All right.
The wise sage, the
Oh,
wise sage.
geez. Okay. So I've got a lot of history. I got married when I was 25. I'm now 54. And I was married for 11 years. And I've now been divorced for 18 years. I had a big realization last week when I realized that in 1995 is when I got married. And so I would have been 30 years. So almost 30 years ago, I got married.
Yeah,
Oh
and
my
I was
God.
5.
And
So
Jennifer was 5.
that's wild to me. Like when you meet, it's like seeing your teacher outside of class. Like that's not where you're supposed to be. Like I've known Chris as an adult. She's an adult and I'm an adult and we're adults. And so like when you start to actually like put timings to stuff, you're like, what? No way. Like that's not possible, you know?
Yeah. So it's been my journey has been very long and complex from that time on, because I married my best friend who I couldn't have imagined um, not being married to. And never really was one of those girls who I never thought that I would get married in the first place. It wasn't on my list of things to do. I didn't really want kids. I've never wanted kids. It just didn't, it sounded really hard. It didn't sound fun.
Yeah.
And I, you know, fell in love with just like this amazing human who I still think is an amazing human. I'm not somebody who is like, you know, I wasn't happy about my divorce, and it wrecked me in a lot of ways. Because our demise came from, mental health problems, which is not a lot of, like there's not a lot of blame to go around there.
Yeah.
And it was really complicated, and it was a long time ago. And a lot of time has passed where, we didn't talk about things. I got divorced in 2006.
Right. Different time.
Totally different time. And from that time on, I have been in um, multiple relationships, long term and short term. Have realized that I can hold space for multiple people at the same time, which puts me in the poly world. Being a completely monogamous person I don't think has ever worked for me. And having open conversations about what love looks like has been very important to my life and my conversations. I identify as queer, and I'm still like, I don't have real examples of what that means. There's so many conversations around what that means because I date men. I'm sexually attracted to men. I love women. And I'm along the lines of I'm open to love in many forms to see what will happen.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to have I would love to have another relationship where I, felt like somebody and I could, partner and do life together, in a monogamous fashion. But those things have not aligned for me. And
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. Because
At least as of late, like,
yeah, yeah, and so I've got really amazing, people in my life that I am, really happy with that. So yeah. Um, like what, give us your history.
uh, yeah. So I dated a couple of people in my youth, and my last kind
You're
of
still
big.
in your youth.
I know, but my youthier youth, and my last kind of big relationship before my more recent history was in university. And then I kind of I have always centered like female friendship, but I've had people that have orbited my life and had my youthful relationships were actually quite deep. Like they weren't typical to your high school boyfriend or whatever. I had an 18-year fling at, back then he was a 12-year fling and he turned into a 15-year fling and and so even my more casual kind of relationships are highly intense. And but anyway, I launched my career and kind of like woke up one day and I was like, I've been single for 5 years. I didn't even realize, like, I wasn't dating. It wasn't on my mind. Kind of
Yeah.
like Chris, I've never actually envisioned a marriage. I grew up with a single mother. I didn't have a father figure. I didn't have this idea of a perfect union or a perfect family. I certainly did not want children. I hear my mom, saying like, when you meet the right person, all the stuff that people say to people who don't want children. But I think that was always very much like, I just don't want children. And so I was single for like 5 years and I was like, that's crazy. And I ended up moving, and saying like, okay, when I get settled in my career, I will date. And so I tried to date in Dallas and I was like, ew, gross, like absolutely not. And it was funny, like at my agency, all my coworkers were like married or had long-term relationships, so they were living vicariously through me. Like I'm often that single friend where it's like, oh my god, what's happening? And I remember we had like a post-it kind of wall with my dates of like first date, second date, third date. It's like their name, I was using OkCupid and other things where it's like their match
Oh my
score,
God, the original
the
spreadsheet.
original
The
spreadsheet.
original spreadsheet was via post-it note.
Yes, the original spreadsheet was live in person. And, so then if they didn't make it to the next round, it's like fantasy football slash spreadsheet.
The pinpoint in there is that Jennifer has an amazing spreadsheet for dating, and we
I
will follow up
do.
on that later.
It's in
So
my Instagram link, for free. You can have it. But yeah, so I would X through them. And so I was like, okay, actually I really absolutely do not like Dallas and I don't want to be here. So I want to leave the country. So it's like, okay, let me focus on leaving the country. And so then I left the country. And I'm like, okay, let me settle into my career here, settle into a new country, and then I'll date. And then it's like the universe was like, LOL, like, hello, like pandemic. Like, as soon as I was feeling really confident in my work and my, budding friendships here, because again, I always center friendship first. Like, I wanted to feel connected to myself here. I wanted to feel connected to others here. And I didn't want that to be contingent on a romantic relationship. So when I was ready to start dating, the pandemic happened. So then, of course, I was like, but before that, I had a couple of really bad experiences. And I was so frustrated because I was like, hearing old narratives from exes. Like, I had a lingering high school ex that was like trying to still continue with me. And he was like, what happened to you? What happened to you? Like, are you a robot? Like, and he was just like being an angry man that because I didn't want him. I lived in a different country and I was setting realistic expectations. But that really fed into me, like, is there something wrong with me? And anyway, I had a couple bad dating experiences and I was telling a friend, and my friend, she said, have you ever heard about demisexuality? Because I think you might be demisexual.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I haven't. And I used to make a joke all the time because all three of my great aunts are nuns. I'm not personally religious, but I would make a joke all the time, like, maybe I'm asexual. All three of my great aunts are nuns. Because that was the only word I knew. But it didn't make sense for me because I consider myself to be a highly sexual person. And I have had a lot of attraction. And what I know about asexuality in the past is like they don't experience any sexual attraction. So I
Right.
look up demisexuality and like it was like a cloud had lifted from my life and everything made sense. So demisexuality, briefly, is I'm technically on the asexual spectrum. I don't experience primary sexual attraction. There are 5 levels of attraction: aesthetic,
Yep.
platonic, like whatever. One of them is sexual, one of them is sensual. I experience sexual attraction secondary to an emotional bond. And it made so much sense. And when I looked back at the relationships that I did have, I'm like, this makes sense, because I was feeling like maybe I'll never be able to find a partner because I'm not in situations where I can form a deep kind of friendship with
Right.
someone, or have things like this new age dating was difficult for me, right? And then I was like, you know what? Like, so this was big for me. I'm demisexual. This was big for me, but I was like anything else, it can be learned. We don't come out of the womb knowing how to date. We don't come out of the womb knowing how to form connection. And human behavior had already been something that was a special interest of mine, especially in the workplace. So I was like, let me learn everything I can about dating, intimacy.
Diver, learning everything you can.
Yes, every single thing. And Melissa asked, do I have an avoidant attachment style? And so during this kind of learning, I was learning about my personal patterns. I was learning about my triggers. I was in therapy. I was separately like reading. One of my favorite books is How to Not Die Alone by Logan Ury. I love her. I love that book. She talks about attachment styles. She talks about dating tendencies. She has 2 quizzes on her website. I highly encourage everybody to go take them. Also linked in my Instagram bio. But through that, I learned that I was a maximizer in my dating tendency with hesitator tendencies. So the hesitator is like someone who's like, and we won't go fully down this road because sorry, we're getting off track. I won't go down those roads. Go take the test. It's great. But I learned a lot about myself, and I learned that I'm a disorganized attachment. So because of my complex trauma in life and upbringing and insecurities and triggers, I exhibit both avoidant and anxious styles, but I would say I leaned more avoidant, right? So I really dug into kind of everything I could about dating, connection, intimacy. And then I was like, when the pandemic is over, I'm ready. Like, I am freaking ready. Okay. So when things cleared up, I started dating, and then I created some dating efficiencies because I was very serious, right? I've been now, it's been several years where I wanted to try. I actually did want to stop having work be my focus, and I
Yeah.
did want to try, right? But I've been thwarted by the world. So I was very like, I got to do this. Anyway, so I created some dating efficiencies and I found a man. She broke the streak. I broke the streak, and
You did.
it was the man that I needed at the time. So, a lot of my friends were like, girl, what are you doing? Break up with him. His emotional maturity is not XYZ, blah, blah, blah. I said,
Well,
look,
we don't
nobody,
we don't learn in a vacuum.
yes. I'm like,
We
I am deeply, I want to try out all the things that I've learned, and I want to feel sexy and tap into
Yeah.
my, like, I want to do things that I can't do with random people. Right. And so, and he was coming out of a marriage, and he had been in a marriage or a relationship for 10 years, and I had been single for 10 years. And it was almost like the universe was like, you have to meet each other to do the thing that you guys need to do together to find yourselves again. And so we dated for 6 months. And even though, some people might think that's not a long time, for me, it was one of the most impactful relationships of my life. And it changed
Oh,
everything. Right.
yeah. Yeah.
So yeah. And then to kind of wrap up my history is like, I ended that relationship, and then I had finally broken. People say, you'll be given the same lesson over and over until you learn it. And a lot of things about that relationship were a lesson I need to learn, but then it was also pervasive. And I talked about this in a previous episode where it was relevant in my friendships and my career. So I had a massive shift in life when we ended things. And then I purged a lot of bad stuff that I was just not going to entertain anymore in my life. And
Yeah.
then I entered a year of play. I quit my job. I whatever. And during that year of play, I explored, I call it my sexual renaissance, kind of jokingly, but not really. Explored the kink community. I explored poly. I went on dates with couples, like weird stuff. My friends are like, what is going on over there? And I'm like, I'm just exploring, because then I had garnered
Yeah.
an appreciation for intimacy coaching. And I'm like, I got to try these things out for the research.
Yeah, you get to try stuff out, which is great.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let me see if I can shift us into like current state of affairs, right?
Yep.
So I'm gonna reference a couple of episodes ago, and we'll talk about my current state of affairs and shift into Jennifer, because I've had a few people reach out to me, and so I mentioned a few episodes ago that I was going to go on a car camping adventure with a new dude.
Yeah.
And that quickly was about 5 seconds, and that was over, because I continue to have men prove to me that they, in many ways, don't make my life better. Which is unfortunate, because I continue to try to figure out what that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And so said dude, which I had, a lot of things in common with. We had a lot of good sexual attraction, but the biggest learning experience that I had from this is, like learning and like knowing and having like the confirmation of trusting my instincts, which is always great, right?
Yeah.
Because if you are aware enough to know that your spidey senses are up, but you go, I'm gonna see what that means.
Yeah.
Right? So like you're not going blindly into something, but you go, it's got a little tingle. I'm gonna see what it means. Does it mean, you know, I've been hurt a lot and I'm guarded and I'm not giving somebody a chance? Or does it mean my spidey senses were right and dude's a little crazy? And usually what happens is my spidey sense say, dude's a little crazy. And usually is the thing that happens that turns out to be true. And sometimes I'm proved wrong. And I like to try to figure those things out, right?
Welcome. It's welcome to be proven wrong, to be clear. And also to give the thing that you didn't say. You did not go car camping with this man.
I did not go car
Did not
camping
go
with
car
this.
camping. Just to
Yeah,
give the people what they want. She did not go
did
car camping with
not
the
go
man.
car camping with this man, because the juicy part of the story is that like he freaked out on me the night before. I have learned, which is a beautiful thing about myself, is that I trigger people with narcissistic tendencies because I don't let them participate. I don't participate in their world.
Yeah.
And
Which,
so
as we're seeing with the politics, if you don't participate in the narcissist plan, then they freak out.
I don't
Yeah.
participate. So I have I have created pretty good boundaries for myself around certain things, like that I've made a safe world for myself. And, like I keep my phone on do not disturb for the most part, because my neurodivergent brain, if my phone were to bling and ding at me 24/7,
It's crazy.
oh my God, it'd be all over the place.
Yeah.
So this is somebody who you know, very attractive, lots of stuff in common. We started off, had a really great first month. I had some cues that this person was, probably had some addiction issues. I voiced those concerns on day 2, basically, of going out with him. So he was aware of the fact that I'm like, I see you, I feel it, I think this is a thing. And of course, in true addiction issue problems with people, they go, no, that's not me. I don't have that problem anymore. I'm like, well, we all see. We all see.
Time will tell.
Time will tell. And then I just behave as myself, whereas I don't answer the phone when you call all the time. I'll call you back, but I'm not going to answer your text message all the time. I'm not going to answer your phone call all the time. And if you need me to be on call for you 24/7, I am not your girl.
Not a girl. You are a full-grown human with other things. Yeah.
So I started getting some like spidey sense stuff going on, like right before that little car camping thing. And I'm like, I'm a little witchy voodoo. And I'm like, something's not right. Something's not right in the world. And so this man went on a 2-hour rant about how I was not meeting his needs because I was not answering his phone calls and he could never get in touch with me. I'm like, dude, you have known me for a month.
The audacity of some men.
The audacity.
It's like, sorry, you actually met a woman that doesn't center men in their self-worth or life. So wrong gal. Sorry.
Yeah, and I have zero interest in fixing these dudes.
Yeah.
I've zero.
But did you ever have, because I used to be a fixer, and that was one thing that I did cut. I was like, no. Like, I'm not doing that anymore.
I don't think that I've ever been a fixer. Okay. I think that I have made accommodations for people and said, I'm going to give you space to work your shit out.
Right.
And then we'll see what happens. Now I can't fix you.
Yeah. I'm over here like, I can fix you.
I have enough work to try to fix myself.
Well, because I always say leave him better than you found him, which I take that a little too far. A little too far. Leave him better than you found him. So
yeah, so
for the other women,
we both believe in leave him better than you found him. So I did leave this guy better than I found him.
You did,
because when he had his freak out, and he continued to try to convince me that he didn't really need those things. And I'm like, tick tock, tap, tap, tap. And did not go on the car camping trip with him, but told him we could continue to have conversations. We continued to have conversations. He continued to show his little bit of crazy. And
his true colors. Like I always say, like, well, a man, and someone told me this a couple years ago, it's like, women get better with time. Like if you're a safe space for them, women get better with time. They show up for you better. They are better with time. And I made the assumption that was a thing with straight men, right? Like, and someone had told me men show you the best possible version of themselves within the first month, something that maybe not even feel true, right? And then they start to decline into their natural state, and even if they're like phenomenal and then they decline into still phenomenal, they decline, and you really see that in the first 3 months, right? Like, and then certainly by the first 6 months, right? So giving time to have people show you their layers and their whatever. I mean, it's because you're dealing with what someone's telling you versus what they might be showing you versus what, how what they've told you changes, right? So it's very complicated.
Well, so I'm going to apologize because I have a feeling my dogs are about to start barking. But they're literally in the window and I can hear a dog across the street barking. So I want to give like the overview of like, like, I don't want to just say act crazy. I want to give some examples and then what I did about that. So the examples is that I was not answering his phone calls when he called me, in the amount of time that he thought I should have been answering his phone calls. He was showing up in person, very fun and interesting and lovely, and our in-person time felt really good. And then we were having phone conversations after the fact, on other days that seemed off to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't quite figure out like what he was showing me when I was seeing him in person versus what was happening on the phone call situation. And I realized that I had to like, I was like, are you drinking what when we're having these, like these miscommunications? Because
Right.
that's the thing that was my concern on day one. And he finally admitted, yeah, I'm still drinking, I'm having a problem, I've not been honest with you about it. And so I appreciated that he did own up to that, right? But for me, I cannot fix that. I cannot fix that. I have a
No.
history, I know what it looks like. And if you're still doing that and still lying about it, we're not going to bridge that gap, right? And I like that's a deal breaker for me. And I also am aware of the fact that if you're in that situation, you're also probably always super aware of your yourself. Like it's a gap amongst like people that are going through that struggle, which I understand and I have empathy for, but I know that that's not the bag that I can carry for somebody else. And so I then had a conversation with this person, and we didn't uh that conversation went to where he thought, okay, well, we're, like, well, we can work this out because I really like you. And I kept saying, no, we've just broken up.
Yeah.
And then they continue to try to have conversations with you for the next few days. And without you being very clear and saying, I'm going to block you and I need you to contact me again.
Yeah.
And, because those people see you as somebody who can help them and save them and want to be with them and you're lovely and all of that. But the
Like
reality
it's
is
like a compassionate release. So
compassion.
they mistake the compassionate release with you can still be in my life. It's like, no, when you get let out of prison, you I
Yeah.
guess compassionate release, like that you have to come back, but that's not what we do. We're not prisons,
So,
right? We're
so
people.
my statement to that is fuck off with love.
Yeah, fuck
Because
off with love.
if you don't add the fuck off to them, then they're back in your DMs in 6 months and telling you all the things that they've tried to change and worked on themselves. And it's not that I don't have love for you or think you're a bad person. I just need you to fuck off and not fuck with me anymore.
Yeah, like go focus on
you know,
yourself. Fuck with yourself. Go focus on yourself. Don't come back, because I think we've talked about this a lot. It's about the gap, right? So like Logan Ury, like going back to that book, she talks about a lot of core things that are important when you're finding someone, and a few of them are they should be curious. They should have a growth mindset,
yes,
and that you should really understand kind of what your own impediments to dating are, which is the dating tendencies, but also what are your values in dating? What are your deal breakers, right? Like what actually are your deal breakers versus permissible, she calls them permissible pet peeves, right?
yes,
So a deal breaker is a true deal breaker, right? Like and it's like, for me, that might look like more morality and values alignment, especially political.
yeah,
There are a few deal breakers that I've learned through trial and error that I had put in a permissible pet peeve space, um, that actually are deal breakers, and it's okay to have deal breakers. But it takes a lot of introspection to really think about, what are the things that I actually can't, like, okay, for instance, it's like some women are like, they must be over 5'10", and that's a deal breaker if not. And they use this word deal breaker, I think, in the wrong way. It's like, if I have a friend who, gorgeous woman, 5'8", 5'9", and her husband, love of her life, is shorter than her. Um, Aesthetically, like, you don't really see them paired, and they are like the most beautiful, a beautiful, beautiful match, right? Like, because people are attracted to more than physical, right? Whether they know it or not. You might be writing down a list of what you want and the things that, but really looking at those and saying, is this a deal breaker, or is this something that a nice to have? Is this a permissible pet peeve? Is this a strong whatever? Like, really thinking about what you want in a partner, I think, is important.
yeah.
And what I
And
learned for myself.
getting clear about that's so important
Yeah.
because I think that we live in a world where every single time you turn around, somebody will tell you the exception, not the rule.
Yeah.
Well, I
Right.
have a friend who got together with somebody right after a marriage, and they are now married and are happy and have this amazing life.
Right.
That's the exception.
But
That's
also
not
it's not your life. And I think a lot of times people are like, they hold on to this idea and it's like, but what were those extremely crucial details that are left out of this story? Did they have 6 years of therapy before that? Do they understand their part in the dissolution of that marriage? Do they want to grow with you? Do they see you as a person that's should be valued? Like, so
yeah,
many men I meet, like, don't even like women, period, like at all. And it's gross. And so that's a deal breaker. And I think like for me, like one of the ways to get clear, especially in this, I have friends that got lucky, I'd say, and they found someone that's truly aligned before the chaos that is online dating.
yeah,
Um, and they grow together and learn together, and they have really those core tenets of what makes a good partnership. And I'm really big into Gottman's and a lot of other people, Matthew Hussey, Logan Ury, like, it's a special interest of mine. And I help people. I'm an intimacy coach as well, like really big into like those bids for connection and showing up. And I practice it in my friendships as well. Right. But like they got lucky in the fact that they found someone with those core kind of tenants in themselves, and they have grown together. Right. But a lot of people, maybe they meet someone younger like you, and you grow apart, you change, right? You've shifted into a different person, and it's okay to acknowledge that and release someone, because as people we change so much, every 7 years, every 5 years. And as we should always be growing and learning about ourselves. And if you're lucky enough to have a partner that can grow with you and see you and hear you and keep things fresh and be explorative, and or whatever the things are that you want in a partner. And I think one of the best ways to do this is actually to date a lot. So like last year, I was in my little renaissance moment, but I went on 60 dates. I went on 33 first dates.
well, that is
Um,
so good for learning and
yeah.
experience. Yeah,
And giving, so my most recent ex, like giving that 6 month relationship a chance, knowing that this was not going to be a long-term partner for me,
right,
but
right.
that there were things that for me and my personal growth, and for him and his moment,
Yeah,
that we could really lean into. And like that was really important to me. And plus we had like really great sex. So like, there's nothing wrong with getting your bag for whatever time you want, but being aware of like being truly like not looking into someone's potential and saying, I will like them if, like, that
that's
doesn't feel good for the person. Like, you need to like them in their current state right now, and be really truthful about that. Like, that is so important. So, like, I
so
think
important.
exploring and creating that values list, and not just saying, I want someone who's smart or someone who likes talking to me. What
Yes.
does that look like?
Okay,
Like,
so this is something that I always tell people when they're thinking about relationships, because I think that so many women have a list, and they have a list of what they want, and then men have a list of what they think that women want, which we
yeah,
can go into this, which is the 666, like six pack, 6 foot, six figures thing, right?
right,
And
right. The
women
top
have,
1%
right?
of men
And
is
I
like,
have found that the best thing that I've ever done is give myself a list and put together an outline of how I want to feel
yes,
in a relationship.
yes. Well, you
That is
always
the
hear people
most
saying,
important thing. Like, how do you feel when you're around somebody? Not are they 6 foot? Not do they make enough money? Not whatever. How do you feel
yeah.
when you're is your nervous system calm? Do you feel, nice and pretty and fun and excited to see them? And that is
And
like
if
that's
you don't,
gold.
and if you don't feel like, if your nervous system doesn't feel good, right? Do you feel comfortable talking about that and having open communication
Yes.
with your partner? And how do they help you regulate, right?
Yes.
Like,
Right.
because a lot of times we are triggering,
Or do they say,
ex-
well, let's talk about that. Why are you feeling like that around me? I'm really concerned. And how
right?
they
Compassion.
respond to that is like the key. The
Right.
key
Yeah. Yeah.
of having this
Compassion and curiosity.
curiosity,
Yeah.
jinx, baby.
Yeah, compassion and curiosity for sure. Like, because a lot of times, sometimes when you're in a moment of change and like you're triggered or your nervous system is doing whatever, we kind of, some people go to the deep end of like, okay, get rid of them, get out of here, protect my peace, protect my peace. And it's
Mhm.
like, actually, this is a good moment when you're triggered. It's a good time to learn about yourself, right?
Yeah,
And sometimes that's a you problem, honey. That's a you problem. And
yeah,
so if you have a good partner, then they can help you regulate. They should want to ensure that you feel comfortable in the relationship and you feel good. And like my current state of affairs is like this year, 2024, I've been no dating. So I went on all those dates last year and I was like, yeah, I'm good. My partner's not going to be in this city. My community that I want to seek is not going to be in this city. So I'm back to like Dallas days of like when I move, right? But that was intentional of like me shifting focus and trying to put most of my energy towards something that isn't seeking a romantic partner, right? So like I joke and I'm like, no dusty distractions, right? And but there have been little moments of when men have come around during this year, and you know, again, like in my mind, I was like, well, perfect case scenario would be that I have a lover for the
yes,
for the year that's more of a casual thing, that's also like we go to dinner and we have a good connection, but it's a different type of thing. And unfortunately, I haven't been able to find that in person, but I have like a guy in Finland who's really lovely and we connect virtually. And that's a whole different thing maybe we talk about on our sex episode, but
we're,
we have,
we're gonna have a pin board of the things that we're talking about, so we can pin that. We can pin
yeah,
that.
we'll put it in the parking lot. We'll pin that. But like, well, I've been talking to him since February, and he's brought a lot of like love and connection into my life, and I love that. I love that for me. But I have gone on like one or two kind of random dates or entertained a guy, and like what I find interesting is that I am so when Chris was talking about like she's very honest about this, that Logan Yuri calls this hardball dating, and I love it, right? So I'm a hardball dater. Like I'm very clear with the expectations I want. So like I had this like 24-year-old boy running around and he really just wanted to be in my life, and he's like, I'll do whatever. And I'm like, okay, well, this is what I'm looking for. And I literally sent him a text saying, I'm looking to be serviced in specific ways, and I am very particular and I don't want a dusty distraction.
Mhm.
We could try it out, but you're very young. But he was very like eager. And I'm like, I don't know, could have that energy. But, like, it didn't work out because consistency and communication wasn't in alignment, and it was just not bringing me any joy. Like it was not adding value to my life.
Yeah,
Um, but when you say something to someone, seeing how they react, a separate guy, I kissed him for a little while and I'm like, you're great at kissing. And then I end up in his bedroom and it's very clear to me that he's not good. He
yeah,
doesn't know how to be sensual. Doesn't,
babe.
yeah, can't find the clitoris, doesn't know how to be sensual. And so there's a moment when I'm in a situation where it's like, you have to express what you're wanting, but you have to know, and this is where all of this started, where I wanted to get to, that I finally am at, the gap. The gap. What is the gap? People can still exhibit really good qualities that you want, those core qualities, that growth mindset, that curiosity.
Yeah,
And that's great for them. Go and be on that journey. Because if the gap is too large, then you will never be able to meet me where I'm at. We will never be able to meet each other's needs,
yeah,
and you will feel less than. Men have that reaction to women, right? So
yeah.
I've learned that, where it's like I can say that to someone, and I have resources. I have a whole list of resources that I sent that man in,
Yes, yes. So
and he's like, thank you.
let's talk about,
Oh,
so like, you know, how do we know? I've had so many relationships that have been great and loving and amazing, and like some of them are still in my life. And so like I know what looks like it feels good to me. Um, in so many ways, when you have somebody who takes an interest in, the things that you have said you're interested in, right? The person who goes, "Oh, I know that you really like this band and they're playing next week, and do you want to go?" Like just like little tiny things like like just being able to spend time with somebody doing activities that you like together, knowing that you're like, even stuff like your pheromones match up, and like, do they smell good to you,
Yeah.
so
Do
like,
you want to make time for them? Do you
right,
feel prioritized? Do you
right,
feel safe, seen, and secure? Do you feel
safe,
heard? Do you feel
secure,
treasured? And honestly, after my year of my sexual renaissance or whatever, do you feel like a fucking goddess? Like,
got it,
do you feel like a fucking goddess and a princess if you want to be both? Like, because like that's important. Like, I think we have a lot of men that are lashing out right now at women, and they are saying, women only want that top 1% of guy, that six pack abs, 6 foot, six figures. And it's like, women want to feel safe in a relationship. Women want to feel safe to turn you down. Women want to feel well understood. Women want to feel heard. Women want to know that when they say something, you're going to actually hear what they're saying. And women want to know that you're doing the work,
yeah,
that you're putting the work in, not that we're going to have to expend emotional labor, our emotional labor for free, honey, for free, to get you where you need to be at, where you should be working toward. So emotional intelligence.
so let's also talk about the fact that we as women have to say what we want. So
That's true.
if you want somebody if you want somebody that's like, oh my God, is the sexiest thing ever, for somebody that would like wash my hair. So,
Yeah.
right.
Right.
Like,
Like ask
right,
for what you want and don't feel shame. Like I think, and
right.
I'm so
So
excited for
we are confusing to men. We are confusing to partners, people in general. I don't want to just talk about male, female.
right
But
people,
like,
relationships,
you know,
confusing new
yeah, so like,
things.
we can set that up as what feels good to me ultimately, is to be in a partnership that I know that I can tell you if I don't like something and I'm not afraid. I can
Yeah.
tell you if I do like something and expect that you'll listen to me.
And
And
change the behavior changes. If there is a behavioral component, that I feel heard, but not just surface level. Yeah, yeah, I hear you, hon.
yeah,
That the change is made, whether
yeah,
big or small, I think is the key. And so there are a couple of tools, like, and I think we should talk about some of the tools that we use in our relationships. So for me, and maybe it's because I am neurodivergent or whatever, like I want to create the types of relationships and conversations that are going to be sustainable. So one thing that I use when I'm early on dating, but also with my friends, I have and new friends, is the game We Are Not Really Strangers. And so
yeah,
I have the full game, but then they have expansion packs, and one of them is dating, and it's like this cute little thing that goes in your purse. And I talk about it on a first date to see, like, are they interested in this? Because I
yeah,
light up when I talk about this, right? So I want to see what Chris was saying. Like, are they excited when I get excited about something? Do they want to hear about my ridiculous
yes.
dating and like whatever obsession, right?
Like,
Like,
oh
and
my God, what are you talking about? Tell me
right.
more.
Or yeah. Or do they feel like, are they under the microscope? Are they going to have to perform? Like it's a big test. And so if they're interested in whatever, then I bring it out on date 2 and date 3 and go through these questions. And it opens up, like it tells you so much about someone, things that you wouldn't necessarily talk about that early without the aid. Right. And I can talk to a freaking wall. So people are like, oh, well, I don't need cards to have conversation. And it's like, no, that's not what this is about. It's about creating a foundation early on of connection and depth and safety. So a lot of men, the patriarchy impacts men as well. A lot of men, most men do not feel
Men are
comfortable.
struggling. Men are
Yes, men are struggling.
and I have such empathy for them.
Well, I have empathy, but also take some action,
Take
because
some action. No,
we are
seriously,
saying
take some action.
women are saying this, and we've been saying things for years, and you're hearing people are saying what we're saying right now, and
Mhm.
you're hearing, well, I'm not tall enough.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, who
honestly,
said that?
when it gets right down to it, if you find a man that turns you on and makes you laugh, it does not matter if they are sick. They can be broke as a fucking joke, and we'll be like, get in my bed.
Well, it depends. It depends, because I also used to like
We have
date.
that's the exception,
It's
not the rule.
okay.
That's
yes,
the exception, not the rule.
yes. But I think it's because it isn't about the money. It's about state of life, values, alignment, and level. Because when people ask, are you uncomfortable when you make more money than your partner? And it's like, I want my man to be like, bitch, you can make more money than me, honey. And
Well, so
I'm not gonna be threatened. But
so
that's
here's
the
what I
exception.
So that's the exception, because here's what I have found, and has been my unfortunate truth for a long time, is that I have been okay with men who don't make as much money as I do, because I'm like, I like creative people. I like musicians. I like writers. I like, like if you have a passion, I'm like, oh, that is hot. Passion, fucking hot as shit. But what I have found is, even if I don't have a problem with me making more money than they do, they have a problem with it. Ugh, it's so exhausting. And so
It
if
is. It's so exhausting.
when
It's
I
that,
find the exception to that,
yeah.
then I'm super happy with it. You
Yes.
know,
Because if they are aligned with those other things, feeling good at, yes.
confidence and knowing who they are and being like, oh yeah, I'm a musician and I love my life and it's amazing, and that's
I
hot.
love that. We love someone pursuing their passion. We love to see it. So yes, it's about creating a foundation. And one of the other tools that I like to use, and Chris has other feelings about this depending, but like I like a weekly check-in. And so I have a list on my phone that I
You
send
have
out to
to earn
people.
the weekly check-in with me. I'm giving you a weekly check-in on day one.
No, 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 no. So the weekly check-in is like after the first month, when you're exclusive,
About,
or when you
about 3 months.
define
About three
when you
months.
when you define your relationship. But like, it's a weekly or bi-weekly check-in, and it's a safe space to share. So there are foundational things that I like to have in my relationships. And I think that's a whole nother conversation, another episode, another podcast. I know we're basically coming to time, but like, there are foundational tools that I think can be really helpful, and it releases shame or trigger or whatever, and allows people to just have good connection and conversation. And this is so important in the bedroom. It's so important out of the bedroom. And like learning, like back to what Chris was saying, we have to say what we need, or our needs cannot be met. We're not mind readers. We've said this before. Really cultivating that practice of communication and compassion and curiosity and
Yeah.
safety in a relationship, I think, is core, right? And that is hard to find. Two
People will
people in
tell you
alignment.
they don't want, a lot of times people will just, if you ask, people will tell you, I'm not going to meet you there.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah. And it's fine. And then
And
it's
then
like, you are released.
I love that.
Thank you so much for telling me you are
Thank you.
released. Yes. Anyway. All right. Well, I know we're coming to time.
You have my phone turned on 24/7. I'm not your girl.
So we are we are at our time, and I feel like we were going to answer some questions, but we might just have to bring that to the next episode. There's so much here, because each of the questions that we have are a whole nother 30 minutes probably. So
Yeah,
like,
too.
yeah, but I think, I love that where we're at in this moment. Like, you and I are both in very big, I'm calling, like, I'm learning about the word liminal space. We're in transitional moments between the here and then and the later and the now and whatever. And, sometimes romance doesn't fit into what we want in life, and sometimes it does. Sometimes we welcome it, sometimes we push it away, and like, all of those states are fine. And I think, right now we're in a state of, we have to prioritize ourselves. And so if you can add to that, if you can make my life easier, if you aren't actually negatively impacting my nervous system as it's already overwhelmed, then you are welcome. Right.
Yeah. Let's talk. I mean, like, it should be mutually beneficial to both people.
Absolutely. But men receive, if we're talking about a hetero dynamic, we know the research shows that men receive more benefit than women in those relationships. Women,
So
single, child free.
that's why I said that, though, because I think there are so many men that are out there that are like, but what about me?
Yeah.
We want you to be happy. We want you to feel good. We just want, in general, for you not to negatively impact our lives.
Yeah, because you're already going to get a positive impact of me giving you energy. Like, that's what I meant by like goddess energy. Like, you're welcome for me gracing you with my presence. And people are that are in a different healing moment, self-acceptance, like whatever, they might feel triggered by that statement. But
Yeah.
let me tell you, it took me 5 concerted years to get to a space where I'm like, you're
Yeah.
welcome, because
Yeah.
I know my value. My
Yeah.
friends know my value. And I want
You're a great,
people to see that,
yeah, you're a
right?
great partner. I'm a great partner.
Yeah. And we
And
want great partners. We deserve great partners,
we
right?
deserve great partners and we deserve people who want to be in our lives in that way.
And
And
want to
happen,
say,
and yeah, and when it happens, it's beautiful.
yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
again, the sex is better. So,
Yeah. Well,
yeah. So on that note,
sex turns amazing when you get a good partner, and a good
yes,
partner has good communication.
I think
And
we've decided what we're going to talk about next time,
the
because
sex is better is our going to be our next
the
conversation.
sex is better. What makes sex better? We can get into it next time. Anyway, thank you all for listening. If you've made it this far, hopefully you did. Hopefully it was juicy. It was juicy enough, but we wanted to lay the foundation of where we're at, because this is a topic that we will likely be coming back to in a lot of capacities. So, follow us, subscribe, whatever the thing is, ask us questions, send us questions on Instagram, or, whatever. And we'd love to hear from you and hear your feedback. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
we'll be pulling questions from the wild in the future. And so just reach out to us, send me or Jennifer a DM somewhere. And, if you want your question answered, we're going to start doing that. So
Yeah. And we might consider, we have full-time obligations out of this in our brains, but like might consider posting some of the resources I mentioned just to have on our profile, so that you can know some of the things that, we recommend as books, and things for men to learn, for women to learn about pleasure, about whatever, and connection, because they're really helpful. So anyway, all right. Well, I
love,
love you, friend.
love you, my friend.
Bye.
Bye.